It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today and one of our own, General Dan Hokanson. General Hokanson is a Master Army aviator, currently serves as the 29th Chief of the National Guard Bureau and a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He stayed with us. He sat with me in dinner last night. Just learned to see what a genuine, caring leader he is as well. We are so pleased to have him here to talk to us today. General Hokanson, the stage is yours, sir.
All right, can you hear me okay? Great. Hey, thank you, Tim, and to the entire Quad A team for inviting me to join you again this year in Nashville. I'm both glad and a bit surprised to see everyone here this morning after last night's banquet. Perhaps next year we should have Gatorade and Advil as the sponsors for this time slot. All that aside, thank you for the effort of being here this morning. And since it's still early, it's a Friday morning, I thought I'd forego some of the policy stuff. And instead, I'd like to bring back some long-forgotten movies and commercials to highlight a pressing issue in our Army. But first, I have a confession to make. Last month, to better understand our nation's military capabilities as my role of member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I flew on an F-18 Super Hornet out to the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford. And it was awesome. Sorry, waiting for the videos to catch up here. Okay, there we go. And for one horrifying moment, a dark thought flashed through my mind. Did I make a huge mistake 37 years ago? Don't worry, I quickly came to my senses. After all, it's not the first time I made a mistake. I once applied to the Coast Guard. In the end, sanity prevailed. I entered the Army's relatively new aviation branch in 1986, only a few days after this movie hit theaters.
I gotta give you your dream shot. I'm gonna send you up against the best. You two characters are going to Top Gun. For 5 weeks, you're gonna fly against the best fighter pilots in the world.
There are no points for second place. Want to know who the best is? That's him, Iceman. That's the way he flies, ice cold. I flew with you, old man. You're a lot like he was. Only better.
So you're the one.
Yes, ma'am. The best is, that's him, Iceman. That's the way he flies, ice cold. That's the way he man.
Okay, just so you know, we did rehearse this last night. It all worked fine, so it is Friday morning. At the time, we didn't know we were in the last few years of the Cold War, but we did know we were in a great struggle at the time. In 1984, high school students calling themselves Wolverines conducted guerrilla warfare against invading communist forces in the movie Red Dawn. In 1985, Rocky Balboa defeated the Russian boxer Ivan Drago and avenged the death of Apollo Creed. And then, as we just saw in 1986, Top Gun heroes Pete Maverick Mitchell and Tom Iceman Kazansky destroyed 4 MiGs after the SS Layton drifted into hostile waters. It was an inspiring time to be in the military, and like many periods in our nation's history, it was an important time to be in the military. There was a tremendous sense of purpose that the world was divided between those who fought for freedom and those who stood for oppression, those who valued enlightenment and those who worked in darkness, those who believed in the promise of a future and those who longed to return to a backwards past. There were 2 superpowers then, one who built the post-war rules-based international order and one who sought to destroy it. And if you believed in that order, if you believed in preserving peace, preserving strength, and preserving the society that made that order possible, being in the United States Army was cool. Now, this isn't a history or a science lesson, but I think this cultural shift, Red Dawn, Rocky IV, Top Gun, and dare I mention Iron Eagle, which also came out in 1986. And I'm sorry, Doug Masters and Pappy, you were no Tom Cruise. You could say all of these were preceded by 5 little words that made their debut during the college football championship game in 1981. And a spoiler alert for those who weren't alive when this game was played, Clemson won. Those 5 words that launched the Army's new recruiting campaign during that game were be all you can be. It's okay, I know you're singing that in your head right now. If you missed the Be All You Can Be rollout during that championship game, here's an early commercial from that recruiting campaign.
There's just one place where you can go from high school to flight school, the Army. Today's Army has more pilots than the largest airline.
You did notice, okay. You did notice he never touched the flight controls, right? Okay. All right, and how about one of those for our maintainers?
Attention, there's nothing under the air or on the ground more difficult Army creature. The Apache sent Ben Simmons like a TV for target acquisition. The gunner is just leveling his head. Talk about hot. This bird made tracks at 200 miles an hour. No, that's cool. No, that's hot.
All right. So, if you were a kid like me, from a big family in a small town, where Bigfoot statues outnumber the traffic lights 4-0, these ads represented something. They represented opportunity, the chance to learn, to prove myself, to serve our great nation, to go to new places, do something cool, and help make the world a better place. It was a chance to be one of the good guys. And so I joined the Army. And while I don't know what life would have been like had I joined the Coast Guard or made a series of decisions that put me behind an F-14 Tomcat, I think the Army lived up to its promise and allowed me and many others of my generation to actually be all we could be. Most of the most incredible opportunities I've had in my life I owe to the Army. The closest friends I'll ever have, a chance to meet my amazing wife, educational opportunities I only dreamed of, experiences around the globe serving our nation with some of the greatest people I will ever know, the ability to provide for my family, and the opportunity to fly. All possible because I made the choice to join the profession of arms and wear the cloth of our nation. Like many of you in this room, I am blessed to still wear the uniform, something I cherish every day as the end of my service comes closer to the horizon. As that horizon approaches, as it will for everyone here, perhaps the greatest responsibility we have is to ensure we leave this incredible organization better than we found it. And because people are our highest priority, that starts with making sure there is someone behind us, someone who is trained and ready to take our place. Someone who's willing to stand in the breach when our nation calls and who is prepared for what the unknown future holds. Like all soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians, whether we are conscious of it or not, we're all recruiters. And although today's recruiting environment is challenging to say the least, I think we, especially as Army aviators, have overcome even greater challenges in the past, like this one. Okay. If you were a Black Hawk, Chinook, or Huey driver in 1990, you probably laughed out loud when you saw this and realized you made a good choice. If you were an Apache pilot, you just cringed or told everyone you really wanted to fly Cobras. And it took the truly heroic actions of Dick Cody and his team from the 101st, who opened the door at the start of Desert Storm, to overcome that movie. And despite valiant and concerted efforts, there still remain copies of Firebirds in the lost corners of the internet. So, why at Quad A am I talking about be all you could be in recruiting? If we go back to the awesome 80s I mentioned earlier, when I reported into the 7th Infantry Division's 2nd Squadron, 9th Cavalry, I entered a hollow army. With 6 OH-58s in the Aero Scout platoon I led, we had CW2 Bill Nagel as our IP, W1 Gary Shales as a scout pilot, and 1 enlisted aerial observer, Specialist 4 Wayne Feria. 6 aircraft with 2 crews, which, as a new aviator, was awesome. We flew a lot because we had to, but our platoon was not very combat effective, nor was our gun platoon of AH-1E Cobras, not to mention our incredibly capable crew chiefs who were manned about the same. I didn't think much about recruiting then. I just thought eventually more soldiers would show up from the Army system, and we would integrate them into our formations. But the system rarely caught up with our vacancies. It wasn't until I left active duty and joined the Guard that I began to see the other side of recruiting. In the Guard, we recruit locally for our units, and with only a few recruiters in the state, it fell on the unit leadership to ensure our formations were adequately manned, trained, and equipped. This meant we spent a lot of time doing static displays, air shows, and attending any and all recruiting events to get people interested in joining our unit. The Guard taught me readiness was critical, but you could improve readiness during annual training or during a post-mobilization training. But manning wasn't like that. It took a lot longer to improve. The clear message was assigned and qualified personnel was paramount, and units that were fully manned were the ones who would deploy first. So what's the bottom line of all this? We, and that means everyone here today, whether you're currently serving or not, need to make a concerted effort to recruit the future of Army aviation and our Army. This doesn't mean we all have to become 79 Romeos or 79 Tangos if you're in the Guard. There are many ways to recruit, some of which you are doing already. It's telling your story, attending static displays or recruiting events, telling people about what you and your outfit do and the benefits of military service. It's setting the example everywhere you go, both in and out of uniform, because, believe me, people know who you are. They watch what you do, and their view of the military is often shaped by your actions or inaction. Today, we see a nation where there is division and distrust. We see polarization on issues of race and economics, politics and ideology, and little faith in the institutions that underpin our society. This has borne dysfunction, disillusion, and discord. And unfortunately, our armed forces are not immune. Too many have weaponized our profession of arms to political ends. That has affected the public's perception of military service, and with it, our recruiting and retention. And if you think our competitors and our adversaries aren't watching this closely, I'm sorry to say you're mistaken. But I believe we can step back from the ledges of extremity. We can seek commonality and find common purpose. We can look beyond ourselves to find even greater possibilities. We can rebuild the trust that makes our nation possible and the trust that makes our military successful. We are one country, the United States of America. We're still the nation that established a worldwide precedent for openness, democracy, and freedom. We're still the nation where good people make great things happen. where there are still men and women willing to sacrifice everything for the sustainment of all we hold dear. So one of the most important things you can do, and I would argue we must do, is do your job, do it well, remain apolitical, and live both the Army's and your own personal values. It might just make the difference to someone considering military service. But even more importantly, it will help retention, not just of our soldiers and families, but the retention of our cherished principles and values. They are the things that we fight for. We have shown we can overcome external recruiting challenges like Firebirds and less successful recruiting campaigns like this one.
When the heavens wonder, when the nation calls, you can make a difference and be a part of it all. If you're able to pay the price, you can. Willing to sacrifice, you can. Adventure, helping service in the Army National Guard, you can.
Find yourself in the Army National Guard, serving 1 week in the month and 2 weeks a year, and you'll find an extra paycheck, money for college, and all the adventure you can handle. It's a great way to serve your country and community. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD.
You're ready to pass the test, you can. An American at your best, you can. Adventure, helping service in the Army National Guard. In the Army National Guard, you can.
Kind of fun to look back to the things that we saw when we were growing up. And maybe one day soon, the movie industry will once again highlight the important role we play in our nation's defense with Army aviation classics like this one to help inspire military service. Okay. I know for those in civilian clothes, that really strikes a chord. But how about even a more current one like this? Okay. More movie and media platforms highlighting Army aviation will surely help. And maybe one day we can compete with the ageless Pete Mitchell. Until that time, however, it's going to take every one of us to make a concerted effort to make people aware of the incredible opportunities available to those who serve our nation. Not every day in the Army is awesome, but then again, service is not for everyone, as evident in the fact only 1% of our nation serves in uniform. That's why it's so important we take the time and opportunities to tell our story and lead by example in all we do for the 1 or 2% out there who are considering joining our team. They just might be the ones who defend our children and grandchildren. Or, more than likely, they may be the ones our children and grandchildren serve alongside. As you heard me say earlier, when I entered the Army and first swore allegiance to the Constitution, it was an inspiring time to be in the military. And today is an inspiring time as well. And like many periods in our nation's history, it's an important time to be in the military. The tremendous sense of purpose has returned as the world is being divided once again between those who fight for freedom and those who stand for oppression, those who value enlightenment and those who work in darkness, those of us who believe in the promise of a future and those who long to return to a backwards past. Now, there are three superpowers: one who built the post-war rules-based international order, and now two who seek to destroy it. So, if you believe in that order, if you believe in preserving peace, preserving strength, and preserving the society that made that order possible, being in the Army is and will always be cool. So let's do all we can, and dare I say, be all we can to keep it that way. Thank you. Thanks.
Really inspiring. I'm not just saying that.
Good,
Really
good.
well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got you done in time for your meeting.
Perfect, all good. They delayed at 30, so I'm good.
Wow. Makes everybody want to go sign up again. Okay. Before we bring up my next speaker, especially in light of what's just happened in Alaska, I came across this video that I'm going to play right quick. And it just, with everything going on and all the division and the things going on, it kind of made me think about why we do what we do and what we've done and the sacrifices we make every day. So let's roll that video real quick.
Left it seems when I was leaving.
Okay, that ought to set the stage, huh? It speaks so much about what we do and why we do it. And I'm getting old and I need some shots of testosterone because it just has tears blowing out of my eyes.